Recorded Books and RB Digital present The Scribbly Man by Terry Goodkind. Narrated by John Skelly. Chapter 1. I have come to accept your surrender. Richard's brow drew down as he leaned an elbow on the padded leather arm of the massive chair he was in. He was more perplexed than troubled. The rotund man was wearing formal white robes, ornately embroidered in gold designs that added an air of dignity to his pear shape. He stood patiently at the head of a line of supplicants, stretching back into the distance of the enormous vaulted room. Windows, high up to the side, let in streamers of hazy afternoon light that gave the vast room an almost spiritual quality. Fat black marble columns, variegated with red and gold veins, rose up in a tight row to each side of the long room. Gilded capitals atop the columns supported balconies where large crowds watched the proceedings along with the people on the main floor in the shadows behind the columns. At the head of the room, behind Richard and Kaylin sitting in stately chairs at a heavy table on a raised platform, a ring of leaded glass windows surrounded a 2-story-high, carved white marble medallion depicting the long lineage of the House of Rawle. It was an impressive seat of power. Growing up in the woods of Heartland, Richard could never have imagined such a place, much less imagined himself sitting at the head of it. Nearby, palace officials and their aides stood ready to assist with anything needed. Heavily armed men of the first file, between Richard and Kaylin and the rest of the roomful of people, did their best to remain inconspicuous, mostly staying out of the way toward the sides. Behind Richard and Kaylin, in front of the massive marble medallion, 6 moored Sith stood at ease. 5 of the moored Sith wore their white leather outfits. 1, Vika, was wearing red. Richard had requested that they all wear white for the occasion so as to appear less menacing, it being a time of peace, after all. Vika had said that she was there to protect the Lord Rawle, and if she looked menacing, all the better. Richard had long ago learned that life was easier if he let moored Sith have their way with petty issues. He knew that if it was vital, they would follow his orders, to the death if need be. The people to each side on the main floor and up in the balconies, everyone from farmers to nobility, all fell silent as they waited to hear what the Lord Rawle would say in response to such an outlandish demand. The heavy-set man in gold-embroidered white robes waited as well. Beneath an elaborate white cloak, pushed open in front by his substantial girth, silver chains around his neck just below the folds of false chins held a variety of small ornaments that reminded Richard of symbols of rank that army officers wore on their uniforms for formal occasions. Richard remembered seeing similarly dressed people in an open tent down in the market at the base of the enormous plateau that supported the sprawling People's Palace. The people down in the market and tent city had been gathering for weeks to have a chance to witness the kind of event that had never taken place in their lifetimes, or to profit from it. My surrender, Richard repeated in a quiet voice into the hushed air. My surrender of what? Your world. Some of the nearby soldiers and court attendants chuckled. When they did, many of the people watching joined in to giggle with them, or at least they did until they saw that Richard was not amused. His gaze flicked to Kaylin, seated beside him behind the table where supplicants could place maps, contracts, and other documents for their review.
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.